Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into the world of In His Mother's Eyes? Released on March 2023, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. Released on March 21, 2023, In His Mother's Eyes immediately grabbed the attention of audiences and critics alike, sparking a wave of discussions about its raw portrayal of familial bonds, loss, and the complexities of love. With its powerful performances and thought-provoking narrative, the film quickly became one of the most talked-about movies of the year. It's not just another drama. It's a cinematic experience that resonates with anyone who has ever grappled with the absence of a loved one or the challenges of reconnecting after a long separation. This movie doesn't just entertain. It touches a deep emotional chord, offering both a heart-wrenching and hopeful look at what it means to rebuild relationships when time and distance have created insurmountable gaps. At first glance, In His Mother's Eyes might seem like a simple story about a mother returning to her son after years of absence, but it quickly reveals itself to be so much more. The film dives deep into the intricacies of human connection, exploring how love can be fragile, how forgiveness is often not given freely, and how people change in ways that sometimes make it impossible to return to the version of ourselves we once knew. But it's not just the narrative that captivates viewers. It's the extraordinary performances, the stunning cinematography, and the beautiful way the film weaves its complex themes into the very fabric of the story. This is the type of film that lingers long after the credits roll, making viewers reflect on their own lives and relationships. The plot centers on a boy named Tim, a special child who has been under the care of his uncle Bibs for several years due to his mother Lucy's demanding work commitments. Tim's early years were filled with love and care from Bibs, and during this time, he formed an unbreakable bond with the man who stepped in as his father figure. But as time passes, Lucy returns, and she's determined to re-enter Tim's life. What seems like the perfect opportunity for a heartwarming reunion quickly turns into an emotional battle. Tim, who has grown accustomed to Bibs and the life they shared, is reluctant to embrace the mother who abandoned him. Lucy, who has spent years away, finds herself battling not just her own guilt, but also the harsh reality that her place in her son's life may no longer exist as it once did. This tension between mother, son, and uncle propels the story forward, as each character struggles to rebuild the relationships that were once the foundation of their world. What makes In His Mother's Eyes stand out is how it handles this complex emotional terrain with subtlety and grace. It's not a film that relies on melodrama or simplistic resolutions. Instead, it gives its characters room to breathe, allowing their emotions to unfold naturally, creating an atmosphere of real human struggle. The performances are extraordinary, with Marice Soriano portraying Lucy in a way that tugs at the heartstrings without ever crossing into overt sentimentality. She embodies the pain of a mother who realizes that reconnecting with her son is not just about showing up. It's about confronting the consequences of her absence, facing the fact that love alone is not enough to repair the damage caused by time. Roderick Paulate's portrayal of Uncle Bibs provides the perfect balance to Soriano's performance. Bibs is not just a caretaker. He's the embodiment of the quiet strength that comes from unconditional love. He's a man who has raised Tim as his own, and though he loves Lucy, he has his own set of wounds to bear from the years she was gone. Paulate plays Bibs with such nuance that it's impossible not to feel for his character. A man caught between loyalty to his nephew and the complicated emotions that come with the return of a long-lost sister. The real revelation, however, comes from L.A. Santos, who plays Tim. As a young man struggling with the idea of a mother who was never there, Santos gives a performance that feels raw and authentic. Tim is a character who doesn't just need to forgive. He needs to understand the complexities of his own emotions, and Santos brings this internal conflict to life in a way that's both powerful and heartbreaking. Watching Tim navigate his confusion, anger, and sorrow is one of the most moving aspects of the film. It's a testament to the actor's skill that he is able to convey such a range of emotions without relying on dialogue alone. His performance speaks volumes in the silences between words, in the glances, the hesitations, and the unspoken understanding that grows between him and the other characters. Visually, In His Mother's Eyes is equally compelling. The cinematography mirrors the emotional undercurrents of the story, using lighting and camera angles to convey the isolation and emotional distance that the characters are feeling. There are moments where the camera lingers on a character's face for just a little too long, allowing us to feel the weight of their inner turmoil. The quiet stillness of the shots speaks volumes, giving the film a reflective, almost meditative quality. The use of color in the film also plays a significant role in amplifying the emotional tone. Subdued, muted tones reflect the character's struggles, while bursts of brighter colors symbolize moments of hope, albeit fleeting and often overshadowed by the conflict that lingers. The soundtrack, though not overtly dramatic, perfectly complements the visuals, helping to elevate the emotional resonance of each scene. The music is subtle but integral, guiding the viewer through the highs and lows of the story. It's a soundtrack that never overpowers the scenes, but instead enhances them, creating an atmosphere where every note feels carefully chosen to deepen the emotional impact. In His Mother's Eyes is more than just a movie. It's an exploration of the complexities of human relationships. It's about the pain of abandonment, the difficulty of forgiveness, and the slow, painful process of healing. It's a film that doesn't offer easy answers or a neatly tied-up ending. Instead, it challenges its viewers to grapple with the imperfections of life, to understand that love is not a cure-all, and that some wounds take longer to heal than others. The film's ending, while hopeful, is not without its own lingering sadness, a reminder that relationships are a journey, not a destination. What makes In His Mother's Eyes a cultural phenomenon is its ability to connect with people on a deeply personal level. The themes of abandonment, reconciliation, and the complexity of family relationships resonate universally, making the film not just a story about a specific mother and son, but a story about anyone who has ever experienced the pain of disconnection and the challenge of rebuilding a broken bond. In a world where many films rely on high-octane action or fantastical plots to captivate audiences, In His Mother's Eyes stands out because of its emotional honesty and the depth of its characters. Audiences are drawn to the film not just because of its compelling narrative, but because it speaks to something we all experience: the desire to understand and heal the relationships that define our lives. The film doesn't offer a simple resolution to its conflicts, but it gives viewers something much more valuable: an authentic exploration of how relationships evolve, how people change, and how the love between a mother and a son can endure, even when time and distance seem to have torn them apart. In a landscape dominated by blockbuster franchises and fast-paced narratives, In His Mother's Eyes offers something rare: an intimate, heartfelt portrayal of the complexities of family life. It's a film that challenges viewers to reflect on their own relationships, to think about the bonds that hold us together and the ways in which we sometimes lose and find each other again. The movie's cultural impact lies in its ability to spark these reflections and discussions, making it a cinematic experience that goes beyond entertainment. It's a mirror held up to our own lives, showing us the raw, beautiful, and sometimes painful reality of what it means to love and be loved. For those who haven't seen it yet, In His Mother's Eyes is an experience that should not be missed. It's a film that demands to be watched not just for its story, but for the performances, the visuals, and the emotional journey it takes you on. And for those who have already seen it, there's a lot to unpack. So many layers to explore, so many emotions to feel again. This is the kind of film that stays with you long after it ends, making you think about the complexities of love, the passage of time, and the challenges of reconnecting with the people who matter most. From the very first scene, In His Mother's Eyes plunges us into an emotional world where love and loss are intricately intertwined. The opening shot is intimate and quiet, setting the tone for the drama that will unfold. A young boy, Tim, sits alone in a small room, staring out of the window. There's a sadness in his eyes, a longing for something he can't quite name, and it's clear from the very start that this isn't going to be a simple, feel-good story. This is a film about the complexities of family, about the difficulty of rebuilding relationships, and about the deep, sometimes painful, bonds that define our lives. Tim is not your typical child. He's a special child, intelligent and perceptive, but also vulnerable in ways that the world doesn't always understand. His mother, Lucy, is the only one who truly knows him in a way that nobody else can. But there's one problem. She's not around. She's gone. For years, Lucy has been absent from Tim's life, having left him in the care of her brother, Bibs, to focus on her demanding job. And so, the story begins with a motherless child, raised by an uncle who has taken on the responsibility of not just caring for Tim, but of loving him as if he were his own son. Bibs, played by Roderick Paulate, is a man of quiet strength. He's a man who has built his life around taking care of his family, yet there's a certain weariness in him, a sadness that comes from years of sacrifice. He's had to play the role of both father and mother, and though he loves Tim deeply, it's clear that the weight of his responsibility is starting to take its toll. His life has been centered on providing for Tim, and in doing so, he's given up much of his own happiness. There's an unspoken tension between Bibs and Lucy, one that goes beyond mere absence. It's clear from the start that Lucy's return will not be the easy, joyful reunion everyone hopes for. When Lucy does finally return, after several years of absence, we can feel the storm brewing. Her return isn't just a physical reappearance. There's something deeper at play. She's not the same woman who left. She's changed, hardened in some ways, but still desperately longing to reconnect with the son she left behind. Her first moment on screen is powerful. Marice Soriano's portrayal of Lucy is magnetic. She's a woman filled with guilt and determination, but she wears that guilt like armor, refusing to show any weakness. Her eyes search for Tim, and we can feel her desperation. It's been so long, and she's missed so much of his life. But will Tim welcome her back with open arms? Or will he reject her in favor of the uncle who has raised him? At this point in the film, the suspense is palpable. The tension between Lucy and Bibs is immediately noticeable, but it's the strained relationship between mother and son that really pulls the audience in. Tim's reluctance to embrace Lucy is both heartbreaking and understandable. For years, Bibs has been his father figure, and to Tim, Bibs is home. Lucy is a stranger, someone who's been missing during the most formative years of his life. In Tim's mind, Bibs is the one who mattered, the one who held everything together. Lucy, despite her best intentions, is an intruder. This emotional distance creates an immediate sense of conflict and sets the stage for the entire first half of the movie. One of the film's most pivotal moments happens early on, when Lucy tries to reconnect with Tim. She brings him a gift, a small, thoughtful gesture meant to bridge the gap between them. But instead of the joy she hopes for, she's met with rejection. Tim's face, usually so open and vulnerable, hardens. He looks at the gift, then back at her, and without a word, turns away. It's a small moment, but it's incredibly powerful. It's the moment that defines their relationship for the rest of the film. It's a rejection not just of the gift, but of everything that Lucy represents. A reminder of everything she wasn't there to be for him. The scene plays out without dramatic music or grand gestures. It's quiet, almost painfully so. But in that silence, the heart of the film beats louder than any words could express. Lucy, of course, doesn't give up. She tries again and again and again. Each time, we see her struggle to break through the walls that Tim has built around himself. But the more she tries, the more the distance grows between them. She is confronted by a reality she never expected. The love she once had for her son is not enough to undo the damage caused by her absence. Her emotional journey becomes a battle not just against Tim's resentment, but against her own guilt. She wants to be the mother she never had the chance to be. But how can she when Tim has been raised by someone else? It's a question that haunts her throughout the film, and it becomes clear that Lucy's journey is not just about reconnecting with Tim. It's about reconciling with herself, coming to terms with the choices she's made, and finding a way to rebuild a relationship that she thought was beyond repair. Meanwhile, Bibs is caught in the middle. He loves Tim like his own son, and the idea of losing him is more than he can bear. There's an interesting complexity to Bibs' character. He's not simply a surrogate father. He's a man who has sacrificed everything to be there for Tim. His role as caretaker has defined his life, but it's also left him with very little room for himself. There's a deep sadness in him that grows as Lucy pushes harder to reconnect with Tim. It's a sadness born from a sense of betrayal, not by Tim, but by Lucy. She left him in charge of everything, but now she's back, trying to reclaim what was hers. It's a quiet conflict, but it's one that runs deep. Bibs has spent years doing what was needed for Tim, but now he must face the painful reality that Tim is no longer his alone to care for. The drama of In His Mother's Eyes builds with each passing moment, and the first half of the film is filled with poignant, quiet exchanges that say more than words ever could. There are several key moments that foreshadow the emotional peaks to come, moments that reveal the fragile nature of the relationships at the heart of the story. When Lucy finally attempts to have a heart-to-heart conversation with Tim, we feel the weight of her failure to communicate with him. She tries to explain why she left, why she wasn't there for him, but the words get lost in the silence between them. Tim's anger and confusion are palpable, but so is Lucy's frustration. They're both trapped in their own emotional prisons, unable to reach each other despite their best efforts. It's a heartbreaking moment, one that foreshadows the deeper emotional battles to come. There's also a moment where Bibs sits alone in his room, staring at a photograph of his younger self with Lucy. The picture represents a time before everything changed, before Lucy left him with the heavy responsibility of raising Tim. It's a bittersweet moment that highlights the complexity of his feelings. He loves Lucy, but he resents her for abandoning him and Tim. He spent years filling the role of father and mother, but now that she's back, he's not sure where he fits. His struggle, though internal, is just as compelling as the one Tim faces. Bibs has never asked for recognition for his sacrifices, but as the tension rises between the three of them, it becomes clear that the emotional wounds from years of sacrifice and absence will not be easily healed. As the first half of the film draws to a close, the sense of unresolved tension builds. We know that the relationships between Lucy, Bibs, and Tim are on the brink of something explosive. The groundwork has been laid for the emotional conflicts to escalate, and there's a sense that the characters are reaching a breaking point. The subtle shifts in their interactions, the growing resentment from Tim, Lucy's increasing frustration, and Bibs' quiet sorrow, have set the stage for a confrontation that will change everything. In His Mother's Eyes has managed, in these first moments, to set the stage for a gripping emotional journey. The characters are complex, the stakes are high, and the suspense grows with every moment that ticks by. As we move toward the second half of the film, we know that the real emotional fireworks are yet to come, and the first half has already shown us that the road to reconciliation is anything but easy. This is a story about love, about the mistakes we make, and the painful, sometimes impossible journey toward healing. And as we reach the halfway point, it's clear that In His Mother's Eyes is just getting started. As the second half of In His Mother's Eyes begins, the emotional tension that has been building throughout the first half reaches its peak. The unresolved issues between Lucy, Bibs, and Tim are now impossible to ignore, and each character is forced to confront the consequences of their actions and decisions. The quiet, simmering conflict that had been brewing under the surface is now on the verge of erupting, and the audience can feel the gravity of the situation. The pivotal moment comes when Tim, who has been steadfast in his refusal to accept Lucy's return, is confronted with a startling revelation that shakes him to his core. Up until this point, he has been holding on to the idea that Bibs is his real father, that the man who raised him is the only one who truly understands him. But as the film unfolds, we learn that Tim's perception of his family is far more complicated than he ever realized. One evening, as the family sits together at the dinner table, a quiet conversation between Bibs and Lucy hints at a deeper, long-buried truth. Tim's biological father had never been involved in his life. In fact, Tim's father had passed away years ago, before Tim was even born, and it was Bibs who, out of love and duty, had stepped in to raise him as his own. This revelation, though not fully articulated in the conversation, shatters Tim's belief system and sends him into an emotional tailspin. The truth that the man he has always thought of as his uncle is, in fact, the only father he's ever known, hits Tim harder than anything else. It forces him to re-examine his entire relationship with Bibs, as well as his feelings toward Lucy. For Lucy, The revelation that her absence has caused more than just emotional pain for her son is devastating. She has always known that her choices had consequences, but the depth of the wound she's inflicted on Tim is something she hadn't fully grasped until this moment. Her guilt, which has been mounting throughout the film, reaches an unbearable intensity. Lucy has spent years feeling disconnected from her son, but now, the realization that her son's life has been shaped by a man who stepped in for her is more than she can process. It is a painful reminder that love, no matter how pure, can never erase the absence of a mother. The dynamic between Tim and Lucy shifts dramatically in the second half of the film. Initially, Tim had been resentful, even outright rejecting his mother's attempts at reconciliation. But as the truth unfolds, a new sense of understanding begins to form. Tim, though still conflicted, starts to see his mother not as the distant figure who abandoned him, but as a woman who made difficult decisions, who was trying to find her way back into his life despite the pain she caused. This evolution in Tim's perspective is the first glimmer of hope for their fractured relationship. However, just as things begin to shift between mother and son, another layer of complexity is added to the situation. Bibs, who has remained largely in the background throughout much of the film, begins to confront the deep emotional wounds he has buried for years. As Tim becomes more open to the idea of forgiving Lucy, Bibs struggles with feelings of betrayal and resentment. He has always been there for Tim, always stepped in when Lucy wasn't around, and now he must confront the reality that he is no longer the center of Tim's world. Bibs' emotional journey in the second half of the film is one of painful self-reflection. As the family grapples with their individual emotions, Bibs begins to ask himself whether he has done everything he can to keep Tim close, or if, in his desire to protect the boy from the pain of abandonment, he has unwittingly caused more harm than good. There's a powerful scene in which Bibs visits his late sister's grave, seeking solace and answers. He sits alone in front of the tombstone, tears streaming down his face, as he contemplates the years of sacrifice, of stepping into a role that was never truly his. It's a quiet moment of self-doubt and sorrow, but it also marks a turning point in Bibs' journey. He realizes that the path to healing is not just about forgiving Lucy, it's about forgiving himself. He has spent so much time putting the needs of others first that he has neglected his own emotional well-being. In this moment, Bibs' growth as a character becomes one of the most poignant aspects of the second half of the film. The true emotional climax of In His Mother's Eyes comes during a confrontation between Tim, Lucy, and Bibs. In a powerful scene, all three characters finally come face to face with the truth of their shared pain. Tim, his voice trembling with emotion, demands to know why Lucy left, why she couldn't have stayed, why she chose her career over him. For a moment, it feels like everything is about to fall apart. Lucy, overwhelmed by the weight of her guilt, breaks down in front of Tim, admitting that she never intended to hurt him, but that she had been so lost in her own ambition and struggles that she didn't realize what she was losing in the process. Tim, still hurt and angry, struggles to understand how she could have left him behind. But in that moment, something changes between them. The raw honesty of the conversation, the willingness to face the hurt, allows a bridge to be built, one that is fragile but real. It is in this climactic moment that the truth finally comes to light. The love between mother and son never truly disappeared. It was just buried beneath layers of unspoken grief and resentment. The emotional resolution doesn't come in the form of an easy reconciliation, but in the form of understanding and forgiveness, a recognition that both parties have been hurt, that both parties have made mistakes, but that there is still the possibility for healing. It's not a perfect resolution, but it's a realistic one. Full of pain, yes, but also full of hope. In the final act of the film, the three characters, Lucy, Tim, and Bibs, begin the slow, difficult process of rebuilding their relationships. There are no grand gestures, no dramatic declarations of love. Instead, there are small moments. Tim and Lucy sharing a quiet cup of coffee, Bibs and Tim walking together in the park, the three of them sitting down for dinner, their conversations tentative but genuine. It's not a fairy tale ending, but it's a beginning of something real and fragile, something that will require time and patience to grow. The film ends on a note of quiet hope. As the camera lingers on the family sitting together, each character lost in their own thoughts, we understand that the journey they've been on is far from over. There's still pain, still uncertainty, but there's also the promise of something better. As the credits begin to roll, we are left with the sense that the healing process will take time, but that the effort to rebuild their relationships is worth it. The final shot, a lingering close-up of Tim's face, shows a faint, tentative smile, a sign that, though the road ahead may be long and uncertain, there is still the possibility of love and connection. In the second half of In His Mother's Eyes, the film takes the viewer on an emotional roller coaster. It's a journey of self-discovery, of painful truths, and of the slow, often difficult work of forgiveness. Every twist, every climactic moment, is carefully woven into the narrative, building to a resolution that, while not easy or perfect, feels earned. The film does not promise that love will always be enough, but it does offer a powerful reminder that understanding, compassion, and time are the keys to healing even the deepest wounds. It's a story about the complexity of family, the messiness of life, and the enduring hope that, no matter how broken we may feel, there is always a chance to start again. In His Mother's Eyes, the characters are not just figures in a narrative. They are emotional forces, each carrying with them a world of contradictions, struggles, and desires. The depth of the film is, in large part, driven by the profound development of these characters, their relationships, and the incredible performances that breathe life into their struggles. As the story unfolds, these characters reveal themselves not as simplistic archetypes, but as complex, real individuals who are doing their best to navigate the complicated landscapes of love, guilt, and loss. At the heart of the film is Tim, a young boy whose life has been defined by absence. Tim's arc is one of growth and self-discovery, and it is a journey that unfolds with an incredible subtlety. At the start of the film, he is closed off, distrustful, and emotionally distant, a child who has learned to survive by building walls around himself. His mother, Lucy, left him when he was young, and his perception of the world has been shaped by the absence of her love. He has known only one parental figure, his Uncle Bibs, who has lovingly taken on the role of both father and mother. Tim's emotional isolation is not a result of apathy but a defense mechanism. He learned early on that the people he loved could leave, and the pain of that abandonment left scars that were too deep to ignore. The brilliance of Tim's character lies in how these layers are slowly peeled away. In his early interactions with Lucy, there is a coldness, a reluctance to allow her back into his life. The pain of being abandoned, of having his life altered by her absence, is so raw that he cannot even begin to forgive her. He can't see her as anything other than the woman who left him behind, and the anger he feels is palpable. But over time, the cracks in his armor begin to show. The revelation that Bibs is not his biological father, that the man he thought of as his uncle is in fact the one who stepped in as his parent, shifts Tim's perspective. The discovery forces him to confront the reality that the love he thought was unconditional was, in fact, something much more complex. He grapples with guilt, with confusion, and with a deep sense of betrayal, not just from his mother, but from himself, for having rejected the love that was always there for him. The journey Tim goes through is one of understanding. He begins to see Lucy as a woman who, despite her flaws, has made mistakes just like anyone else. He starts to realize that the absence of his mother doesn't mean she didn't love him, but rather that she was trapped in her own struggles. His transformation is beautifully subtle, conveyed through small, quiet moments. A glance exchanged with Lucy when she tries to connect with him, a softening of his expression when he hears her voice after a long period of silence. These are the moments that define his growth. Tim's character arc is grounded in his ability to slowly open up, to let go of his anger and resentment, and to realize that love isn't always perfect, but it's always real. Marice Soriano's portrayal of Lucy is nothing short of exceptional. Lucy is a woman who has lived with the weight of guilt for years, knowing that her absence in her son's life has left an indelible mark. When we first meet her, she is distant, unsure of how to bridge the gap between herself and Tim. She comes across as cold, guarded, perhaps even a little defensive, but it is clear that her heart is filled with regret. She tries, in vain, to connect with Tim, but each attempt is met with rejection. It's as if she is continually knocking on a door that is locked, trying to find a way back into a life she left behind. Lucy's internal conflict is the emotional engine of the film. She is a woman caught between the guilt of abandoning her son and the desire to make amends, but she is not equipped to do so. She does not know how to repair the broken relationship because she doesn't know how to forgive herself. Throughout the film, we see Lucy's vulnerability, her desperate need for redemption, and her determination to prove that she is not the same woman who left Tim years ago. Her transformation is not about achieving an idealized reconciliation with Tim, but about coming to terms with her choices. By the film's end, Lucy doesn't expect a perfect resolution, but she understands that the path to healing will take time. Soriano's portrayal of this transformation is moving. Lucy's strength, fragility, and yearning for connection are all conveyed with quiet intensity, making her journey one of the most compelling aspects of the story. Then, there is Bibs, the man who has stood in as both father and mother for Tim. Bibs' role in Tim's life is complex, and his arc is driven by a quiet, almost understated, conflict. As the father figure, he has provided everything for Tim, offering love and support without ever asking for recognition. His bond with Tim is built on years of sacrifice, and in many ways, Bibs has poured all of himself into raising the boy, trying to fill a role that was never truly his. Bibs doesn't demand anything in return. He simply loves Tim as his own son. But when Lucy returns and begins to assert her role as Tim's biological mother, Bibs finds himself grappling with feelings of betrayal, inadequacy, and jealousy. Bibs' arc is one of emotional vulnerability, and his journey is about learning to forgive both Lucy and himself. He has always been the rock, the one who held the family together, but in the second half of the film, we see him crack under the weight of his own unspoken feelings. The moment when he visits his late sister's grave is a powerful turning point for him. It is there, in solitude, that he confronts the pain he has buried for so long. He feels abandoned not only by Lucy but by the entire family dynamic he has built with Tim. He begins to realize that his emotional investment in Tim's life has come at the expense of his own happiness. Through this quiet reckoning, Bibs' character undergoes the most subtle but significant transformation in the film. He learns to let go of the past and embrace the possibility of healing, both for himself and for his family. Roderick Paulate's performance captures the essence of Bibs perfectly, portraying a man who is at once selfless and deeply human, a character whose quiet pain resonates with the audience long after his scenes have ended. The supporting characters in His Mother's Eyes play vital roles in the overall narrative, acting as catalysts for the main character's transformations. There is Tim's school friend, Jessa, who serves as a small but significant reminder of the normalcy that Tim's life could have had. Jessa's interactions with Tim show a side of him that we don't often see, one that is playful and open. She serves as a contrast to the emotional isolation that has defined Tim's life. Jessa's friendship offers him a glimpse of what it might be like to connect with someone without the weight of past mistakes looming over them. Though her role is not large, Jessa's presence in Tim's life helps him navigate his internal turmoil and push toward reconciliation with his mother. Another supporting character who adds depth to the story is Marlene, a colleague of Lucy's who is privy to the struggles Lucy has been facing as she tries to reconnect with Tim. Marlene's role is small but essential in reminding Lucy of the importance of patience and self-forgiveness. She is a voice of reason in Lucy's otherwise turbulent emotional world, and her counsel encourages Lucy to continue trying, to not give up on the relationship with her son, no matter how difficult it becomes. Lastly, the film features several brief but poignant appearances by characters from Tim's past, neighbors, distant relatives, and old friends who remind both Tim and Lucy of the lives they once had, and the lives they still can have. These characters act as markers on Tim's emotional journey, showing him how far he has come and how much further he still has to go. Ultimately, In His Mother's Eyes is not just a story about love and forgiveness. It is a story about the painful but necessary process of emotional growth. The characters, Tim, Lucy, Bibs, and even the supporting figures, are not perfect, but their imperfections are what make them so real and relatable. The film's power lies in the way it allows us to witness the slow, delicate process of healing, of people working through their hurt and discovering that the path to connection is often long, uneven, and filled with obstacles. But by the end of the film, we see that the effort is worth it, that the journey, though painful, can lead to something beautiful and transformative. The performances bring these characters to life in such a way that their struggles and triumphs resonate deeply, making In His Mother's Eyes a film that stays with you long after the credits roll. Creating a film as emotionally charged and intricately layered as In His Mother's Eyes comes with its share of unique production challenges, unexpected surprises, and behind-the-scenes stories that might leave viewers even more astounded by the finished product. This movie, which has captivated audiences with its heartfelt portrayal of family dynamics, came to life through a series of both serendipitous and painstaking moments, many of which have only added to the film's rich texture and authenticity. From unusual casting choices to unexpected creative challenges, the journey behind the scenes was filled with twists and turns that only a movie of this magnitude could inspire. The production of In His Mother's Eyes was anything but conventional. One of the most fascinating behind-the-scenes facts is that the film was shot in an extremely tight timeline, a decision that placed immense pressure on both the cast and crew. The director, known for his commitment to capturing raw, authentic emotions, insisted on minimizing post-production alterations in favor of capturing as much as possible in camera. This meant that every scene had to be planned meticulously, with little room for error. In fact, many of the most emotionally intense scenes, such as the pivotal dinner table confrontation between Tim, Lucy, and Bibs, were shot in a single, unbroken take. The rawness of these performances wasn't just a result of the actors' talents. It was also the product of a very deliberate and challenging creative choice. One particularly unique production challenge was the location selection. The movie's setting, which looks deceptively serene, was filmed in a small, sleepy town known for its rich, but sometimes unpredictable weather patterns. While the filmmakers had originally scouted a different location that would have offered a more controlled environment, an unexpected storm system rolled through during pre-production, forcing the team to quickly adapt to the unpredictable conditions. What was initially seen as a potential setback turned into an unexpected blessing. The storm allowed the filmmakers to capture certain atmospheric shots, with rainstorms pouring outside as the characters grappled with emotional turmoil. These elements, the pounding rain, the darkened sky, added a layer of symbolic significance to the film that the crew had not anticipated but were ultimately grateful for. It's these kinds of unplanned moments that often elevate a good film into something unforgettable. But the weather wasn't the only surprise the crew had to contend with. One of the more surprising elements was the use of lighting and color to underscore the emotional arcs of the characters. The cinematographer, in collaboration with the director, chose to play with natural light in innovative ways. For much of the film, the lighting shifts subtly in accordance with the emotional journeys of the characters. Early scenes, where Tim's emotional barriers are thickest, are bathed in muted, dim light, reflecting the isolation he feels. As Tim begins to open up to his mother, the lighting grows warmer, more inviting, symbolizing the slow thawing of his heart. This visual storytelling was a deliberate choice that required a great deal of planning and experimentation, and it was one of the many creative risks that paid off. The lighting shifts weren't just technical decisions. They were integral to understanding the interior lives of the characters, giving audiences visual clues to the characters' evolving emotions without needing explicit dialogue. The cast, too, played a major role in bringing the story to life, with each actor adding layers to their characters that went far beyond the script. Marice Soriano, who portrayed Lucy, went through an intense emotional preparation process to fully immerse herself in the role of a mother grappling with guilt and a desperate desire for redemption. Soriano, known for her incredible range and depth, spent time with real-life mothers who had been estranged from their children to understand the pain and complexity of such a relationship. Her preparation was so profound that some of the most gut-wrenching moments in the film, particularly the scenes where Lucy confronts her own failures as a mother, were deeply personal for her. The emotional weight she brought to the character was not just a product of her acting skills but of her willingness to open herself up to the vulnerability of the role. On the other hand, Tim's portrayal by young actor Kyle Verino was a testament to the raw, unfiltered emotions that can only come from a child who has lived through the complexities of abandonment. Verino, despite his young age, had a profound understanding of his character's internal struggles. His performance was so genuine that it was difficult to remember that he was not, in fact, Tim himself. Interestingly, Verino's own experience of auditioning for the role was, in a way, mirrored in his character's journey. The casting director originally had doubts about Verino, unsure if a child actor could capture the nuanced, complex emotions required. But after his audition, where he performed a deeply emotional scene from the script, the director was convinced that Verino's raw sincerity was exactly what the role needed. Verino's approach to the character, blending vulnerability with a quiet, restrained anger, made Tim's transformation over the course of the film feel all the more compelling. One particularly unexpected challenge came in the form of a highly controversial scene that was added to the script at the very last minute. During the final stages of filming, the director decided to include a scene where Tim discovers a series of letters from Lucy that she had written to him over the years but never sent. This moment, which had not been part of the original script, added an emotional depth to Tim's character and provided an important turning point for the film's resolution. However, when the script changes were presented to the rest of the crew, there was immediate pushback from several members. The scene felt almost too sentimental to some, and others were concerned that it might undermine the film's otherwise subtle tone. Yet, after several intense discussions, the scene was shot, and it became one of the most poignant moments of the entire film. In fact, many consider it the emotional high point, where all of Tim's accumulated anger and confusion finally come to the surface, and Lucy's long-suffering love for him is fully revealed. Behind-the-scenes drama didn't end with script changes. The actors also found themselves battling personal struggles as they immersed themselves in their roles. There was an intense camaraderie on set, but also an undercurrent of tension. Filming the emotionally charged scenes was so taxing that there were times when the actors had to take breaks between takes to compose themselves. One particularly memorable story is about the dinner table scene, in which the three lead characters, Tim, Lucy, and Bibs, face off in a confrontation that had everyone on the edge of their seats. It took 6 hours to shoot, with multiple takes of each line, and after each take, the actors would retreat to their trailers to debrief, physically and emotionally drained by the weight of the scene. Marice Soriano admitted that it was one of the hardest scenes she had ever filmed, as it required her to constantly re-enter a deeply vulnerable headspace. Kyle Verino, despite his youth, showed incredible maturity in understanding the emotional landscape of the scene, though it was clear that he struggled to keep his composure. It was a testament to the dedication of the cast and crew that, despite the intense emotional and physical toll, they were able to create such a moving and authentic moment. The controversy didn't just end with the creative decisions. The release of In His Mother's Eyes also sparked intense debates in the media. Some critics hailed the film for its raw portrayal of family dynamics, while others took issue with its depiction of emotional vulnerability, arguing that it bordered on melodrama. There was also a backlash from some audiences who felt that the film was overly sentimental, questioning whether it was trying to manipulate their emotions. However, these criticisms only added to the film's cultural significance. The very nature of the debate, whether the film was too emotional or whether it had found the perfect balance, highlighted the film's ability to connect with audiences on a deeply personal level. What truly sets In His Mother's Eyes apart, however, are the stories that arose from the cast and crew's deep connection to the material. There are rumors that, in an act of solidarity with the film's themes of forgiveness and familial love, the director and crew held a private screening of the final cut for the entire cast, during which they shared personal stories of their own relationships with their parents and children. The sharing of these intimate moments bonded the team in a way that transcended the film itself. It was, as the director later said in interviews, a coming together of people who truly understood the weight of what we were trying to portray. The vulnerability we showed on screen was matched by the vulnerability we showed behind the scenes. In the end, In His Mother's Eyes was not just a film created from a script. It was born from the emotions, struggles, and experiences of its cast and crew. The unpredictable challenges, the script changes, the raw performances, and even the controversial moments all contributed to a story that resonated with audiences on a deeply emotional level. The journey behind the scenes is one of passion, perseverance, and an unyielding desire to capture the complexities of human connection. In its production, In His Mother's Eyes mirrored the very themes it sought to explore: struggles, forgiveness, growth, and ultimately, the power of love. It's a film that stands not only as a cinematic achievement, but as a testament to the unspoken bonds that tie us all together. In His Mother's Eyes, key moments stand out not only for their emotional intensity, but also for the way they encapsulate the central themes of love, forgiveness, guilt, and reconciliation. These moments serve as the heart of the film, inviting audiences to witness the profound transformation of the characters while simultaneously reflecting on their own experiences of family, loss, and healing. What makes these moments particularly impactful is not just the way they engage with the plot, but how they resonate on a deeper, more personal level. They are moments where the emotional stakes feel not only high but essential to the very core of the characters' journeys, making them unforgettable and transformative. One of the most defining scenes occurs early in the film when Lucy attempts to reconnect with Tim after years of absence. The emotional complexity of this scene is immediate and palpable. The setting, a modest, dimly lit kitchen, provides a stark contrast to the raw emotions that are about to unfold. Tim, still a boy but already hardened by his experiences, stands with his back to Lucy. The tension in the room is suffocating, and viewers can feel Tim's inner walls rising, rejecting the very woman who gave him life but chose to leave it behind. Lucy's attempt to speak with him is met with cold silence, and in those moments, the weight of the emotional distance between them is made clear. It's a masterclass in restrained acting by both Marice Soriano, Lucy, and Calvarino, Tim, each holding back their characters' pain in a way that forces the audience to feel their discomfort. This scene is so impactful because it doesn't rely on dramatic outbursts or overt displays of emotion. It builds its tension through silence and unspoken resentment. The emotional depth here lies in the subtlety. You don't need to hear Tim scream to understand the hurt he carries. It's evident in the way he doesn't even acknowledge her presence. The moment underscores the gulf between them, establishing early on the painful process of reconnecting that will be central to the film's exploration of love and forgiveness. The scene is also thematically significant. It highlights the complex dynamic between mother and son, where the bond of love is both undeniable and fractured by years of abandonment. This thematic focus on emotional wounds is felt throughout the film, but in this moment, it sets the stage for the delicate process of healing. The audience's reaction to this scene is one of empathy. It's impossible not to understand Tim's anger and confusion, yet at the same time, Lucy's pain is also palpable. It's a moment that forces the viewer to reckon with their own experiences of hurt and forgiveness, making it not just a scene in a film, but a shared experience between the characters and the audience. Another deeply moving moment takes place when Bibs, Tim's father figure, comes to terms with his own feelings of betrayal. Throughout the film, Bibs is shown as a quietly strong man who has taken on the role of both father and mother to Tim. However, as Lucy re-enters their lives, Bibs finds himself struggling with a quiet jealousy, feeling as though the love and care he has offered Tim is being overshadowed by the biological mother's return. This internal conflict is brought to a head during a particularly vulnerable scene in which Bibs stands alone at the grave of his late sister, who was also Tim's biological mother. The scene unfolds in complete solitude, with Bibs staring at the grave as the weight of his sacrifices and unspoken grief slowly begins to surface. It is in these moments of isolation that we see a side of Bibs that is rarely visible. His pain, his self-doubt, and the loneliness he has carried as the man who loved without ever asking for anything in return. Roderick Paulate's performance here is nothing short of stunning. He doesn't need to say much to convey his inner turmoil. Every subtle shift in his expression and body language speaks volumes. The quietness of the scene is its power. It is a moment of reckoning, not just with the ghost of his sister but with himself. The grief and longing he has buried for so long surface with painful clarity. This scene is not only a turning point for Bibs, but also a reflection of the film's deeper exploration of unacknowledged sacrifices within families. Bibs has been the one holding everything together, yet in doing so, he has silenced his own needs and desires. This moment brings him closer to understanding that love does not come without its own costs, but it also allows for growth and self-forgiveness. The audience's reaction to this scene is a mixture of sadness and empathy, as they see Bibs not just as the supportive father figure, but as a deeply human character with flaws, fears, and regrets. A third crucial moment arrives in the middle of the film, during a sequence where Tim stumbles upon a series of letters his mother had written to him over the years but never sent. These letters, never meant to be read, act as the film's emotional catalyst, providing both Tim and the audience with a window into Lucy's guilt and longing. The letters are a tangible expression of her unresolved grief, a grief that mirrors Tim's own. The discovery of the letters is a turning point for Tim, as he begins to understand that Lucy's abandonment was not a reflection of her lack of love, but rather of her own inability to face the consequences of her choices. This scene is important not just because of the emotional revelation it provides, but because of its symbolic significance. The letters represent all the unspoken feelings and unresolved issues that have lingered between the characters for years. It is in this moment that the barriers between mother and son begin to break down, as Tim is forced to confront the reality of his mother's love and her inability to show it. The scene is powerful in its simplicity. The letters, scattered across a table, are filled with apologies, hope, and regret. But they are also a painful reminder of how much time has been lost, and the emotional depth of this realization is felt in the silence that follows as Tim reads through them. This moment encapsulates the film's central themes of guilt, redemption, and the complex nature of family bonds. It is also a pivotal moment in Tim's emotional journey, as he moves from anger to understanding, from rejection to acceptance. The audience is invited to share in Tim's process of discovery, and the collective sigh of understanding that follows is almost audible as viewers realize that the journey toward forgiveness, for both Tim and Lucy, has just begun. Yet, the decision to shoot with natural light was only the beginning of the film's technical journey. The cinematography, which became a crucial element in conveying the emotions of the film, was an intricate dance between camera movement, framing, and light. The director and cinematographer worked tirelessly to create a visual language that matched the intimate, emotionally charged tone of the story. One of the key innovations that emerged from this collaboration was the use of handheld cameras to create a sense of closeness between the audience and the characters. The handheld camera became a tool for immersing the viewer in the emotional turmoil of the characters, capturing the subtle shifts in mood and tension with a sense of immediacy that static shots could not achieve. This choice was especially effective during the film's most intense scenes, where the camera would move with the characters as they navigated their emotional landscapes. In one particularly harrowing sequence, Tim storms out of the house after a painful confrontation with his mother. The handheld camera follows him closely, capturing the rawness of his frustration and confusion. The camera is never static, moving with Tim in a way that mirrors his emotional disarray. The effect is jarring, but it pulls the audience into his experience, making them feel as though they are living through the moment with him. The result is an added layer of immersion, a visceral connection that heightens the emotional stakes of the film. The film also broke new ground in its use of sound design, which played a crucial role in amplifying the film's emotional impact. Sound designer Arvind Chan, known for his work on some of the most acclaimed indie films of the past decade, took a very minimalist approach to the soundscape of In His Mother's Eyes. Rather than rely on a traditional score to carry the emotional weight of the film, Chan crafted a sound design that was subtle, yet profoundly powerful. The sound of footsteps on gravel, the distant hum of a car engine, the creak of a door opening. These everyday sounds became integral to the film's emotional fabric. The absence of a traditional musical score in many scenes allowed the natural sounds of the environment to take center stage, underscoring the tension and loneliness of the characters' experiences. One of the most striking moments in the film occurs during a scene where Tim is alone in his room, reading one of the letters from his mother. The room is silent, save for the sound of his breathing and the soft rustling of paper. As he reads the letter, the sound of the paper crinkling becomes almost exaggerated in its clarity, drawing attention to the weight of the moment. This sound, simple yet evocative, becomes a vehicle for Tim's emotional release. In that instant, the audience can almost feel the grief and regret that are flooding his heart, amplified by the silence that surrounds him. It's a testament to the power of sound design in creating emotional depth without the need for overt musical cues. The film's minimalistic approach to sound made the few moments when music was used even more impactful, as they felt earned and resonant in a way that would not have been possible had the score been more omnipresent. In addition to its innovative cinematography and sound design, In His Mother's Eyes also made waves with its use of unconventional editing techniques. The editor, Claire Mendoza, employed a distinctive rhythm in the film's pacing, one that alternates between moments of stillness and bursts of emotional intensity. The editing was never rushed, allowing each scene to breathe and giving the audience time to absorb the emotions unfolding on screen. But when the emotional tension reached a boiling point, the pacing would shift, often abruptly, creating a sense of disorientation that mirrored the characters' inner turmoil. A particularly powerful example of this technique occurs in a pivotal scene near the film's climax, where Lucy and Tim have their first real confrontation about the years of abandonment. As the argument intensifies, the editing becomes more erratic, with quick cuts that mirror the escalating emotions of the characters. The effect is jarring, pulling the viewer into the chaos of the moment. However, just as suddenly, the editing slows down, focusing on the silence that follows the argument. This shift in pacing heightens the emotional weight of the scene, giving the audience a chance to feel the aftermath of the confrontation. The moment is quiet, yet it speaks volumes, and the change in pacing serves to emphasize the emotional devastation that lingers long after the words have been spoken. Perhaps one of the most unexpected challenges during production was the logistics of filming in various locations that were essential to the story's sense of place. The film's setting, a small, unassuming town that seems almost too perfect for its themes of homecoming and reconciliation, was a deliberate choice by the filmmakers. However, the town's remote location posed significant hurdles. The crew faced numerous delays due to weather conditions, which, as anyone familiar with filmmaking knows, can be a nightmare. One such delay came when the crew was scheduled to film a key sequence in a forested area, only for a freak snowstorm to sweep in, rendering the location impassable. Instead of delaying the scene further, the director made the bold decision to embrace the storm, using it as a backdrop for the film's climactic moment between Lucy and Tim. What began as an obstacle quickly became an opportunity to enhance the emotional intensity of the scene. The snowstorm, which had initially seemed like an inconvenience, now became a symbol of the emotional coldness between mother and son. The stark whiteness of the snow contrasted with the heated emotions of the characters, visually emphasizing the tension that had built up over the course of the film. Throughout the production, the crew's ability to adapt to unforeseen challenges and turn them into artistic triumphs became a defining characteristic of the film. In His Mother's Eyes is a testament to the creativity and resilience of the filmmakers who, time and again, were able to navigate the technical obstacles that arose and transform them into the very elements that made the film unique. Ultimately, In His Mother's Eyes stands as a cinematic achievement that blends innovation with authenticity. The film's creative and technical achievements, whether through its groundbreaking use of natural lighting, minimalist sound design, unconventional editing techniques, or its ability to turn production challenges into opportunities, serve to enhance the emotional depth of the story. It is a film that doesn't just tell a story but invites the audience to experience it on a visceral level, making each decision, each challenge, and each breakthrough an integral part of the journey. The result is a film that is as groundbreaking as it is emotionally resonant, marking a new chapter in the art of storytelling. In His Mother's Eyes is a film that resonates deeply on a personal level, but its layers of symbolism and exploration of societal themes make it a reflection of something larger, something universal that speaks to audiences beyond the individual story of Lucy, Tim, and Bibs. The movie's true power lies in its ability to blend intimate character moments with a broader commentary on love, guilt, forgiveness, and the cultural fabric that shapes how we understand family and relationships. At its core, the film grapples with the complex emotional terrain of healing and reconciliation, while also subtly examining societal expectations, generational divides, and the often unspoken struggles people face in their relationships with one another. From the moment Lucy re-enters Tim's life, the audience is pulled into a world where the emotional stakes are high, but it soon becomes clear that the personal drama unfolding on screen is also a reflection of the cultural and social issues that affect families across the world. The film explores the weight of familial expectations, the burden of past mistakes, and the cyclical nature of trauma, all of which speak to larger societal themes, particularly within the context of motherhood, gender, and the role of men and women in navigating family dynamics. The film opens with a haunting sense of absence. Tim, a young man growing up without the presence of his mother, and Lucy, a woman who returns to reclaim her son after years of absence. This absence, both literal and emotional, becomes a crucial metaphor for the ways in which society often leaves behind those who need help the most, whether due to personal failings, social stigmas, or the pressure of personal survival. Lucy's return is an attempt to fill this void, but as the film progresses, we realize that there are many layers to the emotional wounds she carries. Her character is emblematic of a larger cultural struggle, one in which women are often seen as either the saviors of their families or the villains for leaving them behind, but rarely as individuals with their own struggles and flaws that need to be acknowledged and healed. The film subtly critiques the social expectations of motherhood, where a mother's worth is often tied to her presence and the sacrifices she makes for her children. Lucy's abandonment of Tim challenges these deeply ingrained notions, forcing the audience to consider the complexities of maternal identity and the reasons behind such decisions. The very notion of motherhood becomes an ambiguous and emotionally charged subject, as we see Lucy wrestle with her guilt and the decision that led her to walk away. In doing so, the film presents a nuanced exploration of how motherhood is often idealized and how those who fall short of these expectations are demonized or cast aside. The characters' emotional arcs, their search for understanding, for forgiveness, and ultimately, for healing, become a commentary on how society fails to acknowledge the complicated realities that women face in their roles as mothers. In this way, In His Mother's Eyes becomes a meditation on the pressures placed on women to fulfill unrealistic ideals of motherhood, and the consequences of this pressure when it goes unmet. At the heart of the film is the father-son dynamic between Tim and Bibs, which offers a fresh perspective on fatherhood in a narrative often dominated by the traditional mother-child bond. Bibs, though not Tim's biological father, is the figure who raised him, who shaped his understanding of the world, and who now faces the emotional fallout of Lucy's return. Through Bibs, the film addresses the often overlooked role that men play in raising children, particularly in situations where a mother has disappeared or is absent. Bibs is not portrayed as a traditional heroic figure. Instead, he is shown to be deeply flawed, human, and burdened by his own sense of duty and sacrifice. His emotional journey is a reflection of the societal narrative surrounding fatherhood. Men are often expected to just get on with it, to remain stoic and unflinching, particularly in situations of familial distress. This portrayal challenges traditional stereotypes of masculinity and emphasizes the emotional labor that fathers, too, invest in the well-being of their children, even when their efforts go unrecognized. The symbolic elements within the film are rich and layered, providing deeper insight into the emotional and thematic currents of the narrative. One of the most significant symbols in the film is the recurring motif of the letters Lucy wrote but never sent. These letters are not only a direct representation of Lucy's inner turmoil and guilt, but also serve as a powerful metaphor for the emotional communication that goes unspoken within families. The letters represent the things we wish we could say but are often too afraid to, or the words that never reach their intended audience, trapped in silence. They are a poignant symbol of missed opportunities for connection and the barriers we erect to protect ourselves from pain, even when it's clear that those around us are also suffering. When Tim discovers these letters, it marks a turning point in his emotional journey. He begins to understand the love his mother had for him, even though she was unable to express it in the way he needed. The letters are also symbolic of the lingering wounds in family relationships, wounds that take years to heal if they heal at all. The visual imagery of the film complements these symbolic elements. The film often contrasts the light and shadow in its cinematography, using the interplay between darkness and light to reflect the internal struggles of the characters. For instance, the moments when Lucy and Tim are together are often shot in muted, somber tones, underscoring the emotional distance between them. Yet, when they begin to open up to one another, the lighting subtly shifts, and we see glimpses of warmth. The contrast of light and dark within these scenes speaks to the fluctuating nature of relationships. How moments of pain and conflict are often followed by moments of clarity, healing, and hope. The cinematography, in many ways, mirrors the film's themes of emotional dualities. The tension between what is known and unknown, what is said and unsaid, and the constant push and pull between estrangement and intimacy. The town in which the film is set, a seemingly quiet and unremarkable place, also serves as an important symbol. It represents the backdrop of a family's trauma, yet it also becomes a character in its own right. The town is not just a setting. It is a space where the past and present collide. Its streets are familiar, but they are also places that are forever altered by the emotional scars of the characters. The town itself acts as a metaphor for the cycles of generational trauma, where the environment holds the weight of past mistakes and memories, even when the people who inhabit it try to move on. It's in this town that Tim, Lucy, and Bibs must confront the ghosts of their past, and it is here that their emotional healing must take root. As the film progresses, the themes of guilt and redemption become ever more prominent. The characters are all, in some way, seeking redemption, not just from one another but from themselves. The film critiques the societal tendency to focus on punishment and blame rather than understanding and healing. Lucy's return, while initially seen as an intrusion by Tim, is ultimately an attempt to make amends for her past mistakes. But the film suggests that redemption isn't a straightforward journey. It's a process that involves confronting one's flaws, asking for forgiveness, and extending forgiveness to others. The idea of forgiveness is one that runs deep throughout the narrative, but the film avoids portraying it as a simple, clean resolution. Instead, it recognizes that true forgiveness requires vulnerability, humility, and a willingness to confront the painful reality of past actions. In exploring themes of reconciliation, In His Mother's Eyes also touches on broader cultural issues, particularly in the context of modern Filipino society, where the importance of family is central to the cultural fabric. The film's exploration of familial expectations speaks to the generational divides that often exist in Filipino families, where younger generations, influenced by changing societal norms, often clash with the older generation's traditional views. This tension between generations is embodied in the relationship between Tim and Lucy, who must navigate not only their personal emotional wounds but also the societal pressures that influence their perceptions of one another. The film addresses the expectations placed on individuals to conform to cultural ideals of family, and how the failure to do so can lead to feelings of alienation, guilt, and loss. The emotional conflict between mother and son reflects this larger societal struggle, as each character must grapple with their place in a family structure that is both shaped by tradition and evolving with the times. Ultimately, In His Mother's Eyes is a film that speaks to the heart of what it means to be human. It is a film that captures the tension between past and present, love and resentment, guilt and forgiveness. Through its symbolic elements, its nuanced character development, and its exploration of cultural and societal expectations, the film offers a profound commentary on the complexities of family, identity, and emotional healing. The narrative is not just about one mother's attempt to reconnect with her son. It is a universal story about the struggles we all face in navigating the relationships that define our lives, and the courage it takes to confront our own mistakes in the hope of finding reconciliation. The visual language of In His Mother's Eyes is one of its most compelling aspects, effectively merging the emotional depth of its narrative with the techniques of visual storytelling to create an experience that feels simultaneously intimate and expansive. Every frame, every camera movement, and every choice in lighting and color is meticulously crafted to not only reflect the internal emotional states of the characters, but also to elevate the narrative, making it something that the audience feels as much as they see. From the first moments of the film, the visual style sets the tone, pulling viewers into a world where the subtleties of human emotion are conveyed not just through dialogue, but through every element of the filmmaking process. The film's cinematography, under the direction of renowned cinematographer Andrea Tolentino, is an embodiment of the film's central themes. It is at once raw and poetic, capturing both the raw vulnerability of its characters and the poetic nuances of their emotional journeys. The decision to shoot with natural light is one of the most striking features of the film's visual aesthetic. By avoiding artificial lighting in favor of sunlight and other natural sources, the film achieves a sense of realism that makes the emotional experiences of the characters feel all the more immediate and genuine. This choice creates an intimacy with the audience. There is a sense of witnessing something that is happening in real time, as if the viewer is not simply observing the characters, but is sharing in their personal struggles and triumphs. Natural light also mirrors the fluctuating emotional states of the characters. Scenes of tension or conflict are often lit with harsh, direct light, casting long shadows and adding to the weight of the emotional moments. This sense of stark lighting contrasts with the softer, more intimate moments when the characters find solace in each other's presence. The varying light sources reflect the changing emotional climates between Lucy and Tim, especially during moments of reconciliation or self-reflection. One of the most poignant scenes takes place in the early hours of the morning, with soft sunlight gently filtering through the curtains, casting a golden glow on Lucy as she sits, reflecting on her past. The softness of the light captures her vulnerability in this moment, contrasting sharply with the harshness of the emotions she has been carrying. Cinematically, In His Mother's Eyes also makes extensive use of the handheld camera, particularly during the film's more emotionally charged moments. The camera seems to follow the characters closely, never quite standing still, mirroring their inner turmoil. The handheld shots lend a sense of immediacy to the scenes, making the audience feel as if they are right there with the characters, experiencing their emotional pain and their moments of catharsis firsthand. One of the most effective uses of the handheld technique comes during the scenes where Tim and Lucy engage in heated arguments or deeply emotional exchanges. The camera shakes with their rising tensions, as if it, too, is caught up in the emotional whirlwind of the characters. It's an immersive technique that pulls the viewer into the scene, blurring the line between spectator and participant. This sense of immersion is further enhanced by the careful attention to framing. Tolentino uses close-ups to emphasize the raw emotions of the characters, particularly during moments of introspection or confrontation. When Lucy first returns and faces Tim after years of absence, the camera lingers on their faces, capturing the flicker of emotions that cross their expressions. The audience is given a window into the characters' souls in these moments, where silence speaks louder than words. These close-ups make the viewer feel the weight of the characters' decisions, their guilt, and their longing, creating a visceral connection with the narrative. The use of framing also plays a significant role in the visual representation of the divide between the characters. The space between them in the frame often reflects the emotional distance they are experiencing. In scenes where they are emotionally distant, the characters are often placed at opposite sides of the frame, separated by physical space that visually symbolizes their estrangement. As the characters begin to heal and open up to each other, the frames become tighter, the distance between them shrinking as they come to understand each other. This progression is subtle but powerful, with the changes in framing becoming a visual cue for the audience to track the characters' emotional journeys. Editing in His Mother's Eyes is similarly designed to support the emotional tone of the film. Editor Claire Mendoza has employed a pacing that allows the film's emotional beats to breathe. The editing is never rushed, allowing the audience to linger in moments of tension or sorrow, feeling the weight of the characters' experiences before moving on. The film's editing rhythm follows the natural flow of human emotions, sometimes slow and contemplative, other times quick and sharp. This ebb and flow are especially noticeable in the climactic scenes, where the pacing quickens to reflect the building tension between the characters. During moments of high emotional stakes, the cuts become more rapid, mirroring the escalating emotions of the characters. In the final confrontation between Lucy and Tim, for example, the editing becomes erratic, cutting between their faces as they speak over one another, showing the emotional turmoil that each character is experiencing. The erratic pacing contrasts with the earlier, slower scenes, amplifying the intensity of the moment and heightening the sense of release when the confrontation reaches its emotional climax. The sound design of the film plays a crucial role in reinforcing its emotional atmosphere. Sound designer Arvind Chan's minimalist approach to the film's auditory landscape is one of the key reasons the film feels so immersive. The film often operates in near silence, with ambient sounds like the rustling of trees, the hum of distant conversations, and the sound of footsteps on gravel becoming the most prominent elements in the soundscape. This sparse use of sound highlights the stillness of the characters' inner lives, the quiet suffering and unresolved tension that fills their days. The silence is never uncomfortable, but rather it invites the audience to focus on the small, often overlooked details that reflect the characters' emotional states. Joshua Reyes, playing Tim, is equally compelling in his role. A lesser actor might have portrayed Tim's youthful defiance and pain as a shallow rebellion, but Reyes brings depth to the character, particularly in his emotional scenes with Lucy. His performance is an intricate dance of vulnerability and anger, a teenager desperately trying to hold onto the resentment he's been harboring for years, while also longing for the love and validation he's been denied. His chemistry with De La Cruz is electric. They're never quite in sync, but always pulling toward each other in ways that mirror the complicated nature of family. Whether it's during moments of hostile silence or their tearful exchanges, Reyes and De La Cruz carry a tension that is both unsettling and moving, mirroring the complex layers of their relationship. Their quiet interactions, sometimes wordless, speak volumes about their shared history. It's through this chemistry that the film's most emotionally devastating moments are forged. Bibs, played by Filipino veteran actor Eduardo Figueroa, adds yet another layer of richness to the cast. As a surrogate father figure, Bibs provides an emotional anchor for Tim but is also torn between his loyalty to his own past and the tension with Lucy's return. Figueroa's performance is one of understated strength, and his chemistry with both De La Cruz and Reyes creates a familial bond that feels genuine. His scenes with Tim, where Bibs attempts to offer wisdom or protection, are some of the film's most tender, but they're also underscored by an unspoken sadness. Figueroa and Reyes craft a father-son relationship that is complex, layered, and at times heartbreakingly frail. Bibs isn't just a secondary character. He's the glue that holds the narrative together, even as his own fractured sense of self threatens to unravel. Behind the scenes, much of the chemistry between the cast members came from the deep respect and camaraderie they built with one another off-screen. The director, Celeste Vergara, emphasized an environment of openness and emotional honesty during the rehearsal process. She encouraged the cast to delve into their personal experiences with family dynamics, drawing from their own histories of loss, love, and reconciliation to inform their portrayals. One of the more memorable moments came when De La Cruz and Reyes had to shoot a particularly raw argument scene. Both actors were in tears by the end of the take, and the scene, once edited, became one of the film's most powerful moments. According to De La Cruz, the scene became a turning point in their on-screen relationship. "We didn't need to say much in that moment," she said in an interview later. "It was just us facing the things we didn't want to say to each other." The on-screen intimacy also came from the strong support from the entire production team. Vergara's approach to fostering trust within the cast meant that the actors were given the space to explore their characters deeply. In particular, there was a shared commitment to creating a narrative that was grounded in emotional realism, something that required collaboration between the actors, the director, and the crew. The filmmakers allowed scenes to unfold naturally, encouraging improvisation during emotionally charged moments to ensure that the characters felt as authentic as possible. These improvisational moments often added a layer of rawness that heightened the emotional stakes, especially in the more heated exchanges between Lucy and Tim. On the production side, Vergara's attention to detail ensured that every element worked together to support the performances. The set, for instance, was designed to reflect the fractured relationships of the family. The house where Tim and Bibs live feels cramped, worn down, and isolated, symbolizing Tim's emotional world. Lucy's return is accompanied by the physical changes in the home. Places that were once familiar to her now feel distant and cold. The cluttered spaces contrast with the simple, yet warm, surroundings of Bibbs's life, which shows the stability he offers to Tim despite the emotional turbulence. This contrast is subtle, but it subtly mirrors the characters' emotional journeys. The past is always present, even if it's not always acknowledged. Filming took place primarily in a small town outside of Manila, which offered the perfect backdrop for the story. The location contributed to the rawness of the film, with the rural landscape providing a sense of isolation and quiet tension. The production was mindful of the town's intimate atmosphere, and many of the scenes were shot in real locations rather than controlled sets. The authenticity of the settings allowed the characters' struggles to feel as though they were unfolding in real time, without the artifice of a studio. During one scene, De La Cruz and Reyes were shooting in a small local diner, and the community's reaction to their presence added an extra layer of authenticity. Local diners gathered around, watching the scene unfold, and many of them were visibly moved by the emotional intensity of the interaction. The blending of fiction with reality created a sense of community engagement that went beyond the cast and crew. It was as if the town, too, was part of the story. In terms of audience reactions, In His Mother's Eyes quickly became a film that sparked emotional conversations. Upon its release, it resonated deeply with those who had experienced fractured family relationships. Viewers felt seen in ways that other films about family struggles rarely manage to accomplish. The film's honest portrayal of emotional vulnerability, particularly in the context of forgiveness and reconciliation, struck a chord with people who had experienced the pain of estrangement or loss within their families. A major takeaway for many was how the film didn't shy away from showing the complexity of human emotions. The anger, sadness, guilt, and hope that coalesce in the process of healing. Critics praised the film for its powerful performances, particularly that of Carmela de la Cruz, whose portrayal of Lucy was described as both haunting and heartbreaking. Joshua Reyes's breakthrough performance as Tim also garnered attention, with many critics commenting on his ability to convey both youthful rebellion and quiet despair with such nuance. The dynamic between the lead actors was hailed as the film's emotional backbone, and their chemistry was frequently cited as a driving force in its success. In His Mother's Eyes is a triumph of acting, wrote one critic, not because the performances are showy, but because they feel true, raw, and honest in their vulnerability. While the film was lauded for its emotional resonance, it also sparked discussions about the portrayal of familial structures and the portrayal of mother-child relationships, especially from a Filipino cultural perspective. The complex depiction of Lucy's abandonment of Tim and the societal implications surrounding maternal guilt stirred debate, with some viewers commending the film for its willingness to take on such uncomfortable issues, while others questioned the film's perspective on motherhood. Regardless, the discussion around the film's portrayal of family dynamics contributed to its cultural impact, with many praising the film for its unflinching examination of how people's mistakes affect the lives of those they love. The emotional depth of the film helped it gain traction in international film festivals, where it became a festival darling. It was celebrated not just for its narrative but for the performances that seemed to transcend language barriers. Audiences across the world, particularly in Asia, praised how the film touched on universal emotions of love, loss, and forgiveness, while still maintaining a distinctly Filipino cultural flavor. Beyond the immediate buzz, In His Mother's Eyes found a lasting place in its audience's hearts. Social media platforms were filled with reactions, some praising the cathartic release of the final scenes, others reflecting on their own familial experiences in light of the film. Fan discussions often centered around the characters' complex relationships, with many viewers feeling compelled to share their personal stories of estrangement, healing, and forgiveness. In the years following its release, the film continued to be discussed, analyzed, and cherished by fans, with particular focus on its raw portrayal of how family members are both our greatest source of pain and, often, our greatest hope for healing. Ultimately, In His Mother's Eyes isn't just a film. It's a testament to the power of shared emotional experiences and the depth that chemistry between actors can bring to a story. The raw, honest performances, combined with the immersive environment of the set and the quiet artistry of the filmmaking, created a deeply resonant narrative that found a way to touch viewers on a personal level. The behind-the-scenes stories, the dedication of the cast and crew, and the audience's emotional connection to the film all weave together into the timeless fabric of a cinematic achievement that will be remembered long after the credits roll. On His Mother's Eyes is a film that defies the conventional boundaries of cinema, weaving together raw, emotional performances with a masterfully crafted narrative that leaves audiences not just entertained, but deeply moved. At its core, the film is a poignant exploration of familial relationships, of love, loss, regret, and redemption. It's a film that doesn't shy away from the complexities of human nature, instead embracing them in all their messy, beautiful, painful glory. From its remarkable performances to its visually arresting cinematography and haunting sound design, In His Mother's Eyes stands as a testament to the power of storytelling to illuminate the human condition in all its intricacies. What makes In His Mother's Eyes stand out in the crowded cinematic landscape is its ability to balance intimate, character-driven drama with universal themes. The film's exploration of the mother-son relationship, one marked by abandonment, estrangement, and the complicated journey toward forgiveness, resonates with anyone who has experienced the ups and downs of familial bonds. At the same time, it speaks to the universal longing for connection, understanding, and the courage it takes to confront the past in order to heal. This rare combination of emotional depth, universal themes, and compelling performances is what truly sets the film apart, making it not just another entry in the genre of family dramas, but a deeply resonant work of art that stays with you long after the credits roll. Carmela de la Cruz's portrayal of Lucy is one of the most remarkable performances in recent memory. Her ability to convey the quiet anguish and regret of a mother seeking redemption for past mistakes is nothing short of stunning. Joshua Reyes as Tim complements her perfectly, bringing his own brand of youthful intensity and vulnerability to the role. Together, their performances create an emotional tension that is the heart of the film, propelling the story forward while also exploring the depths of their fractured relationship. The cast's chemistry is undeniable, and it is this authentic bond between the characters that makes In His Mother's Eyes such an emotionally charged experience. The film's visual storytelling further elevates its emotional impact. The decision to shoot with natural light and handheld cameras creates a sense of immediacy and intimacy that draws the audience into the lives of the characters. Every frame is meticulously composed, not just to serve the story but to reflect the emotional landscape of the characters. The lighting, the use of space, and the framing of each shot all contribute to the film's visceral atmosphere, making it feel as though the audience is not just watching the story unfold, but is living it alongside the characters. Sound design and music also play crucial roles in enhancing the film's emotional weight. The minimalist approach to sound design, with its carefully timed silences and ambient sounds, creates a powerful sense of stillness that reflects the characters' internal struggles. The score, too, is used sparingly, but when it does emerge, it punctuates key emotional moments with a poignancy that resonates deeply. The combination of sound, music, and visuals makes In His Mother's Eyes an immersive experience, one that envelopes the viewer in its emotional complexity. Behind the scenes, the film's success can be attributed to the vision and dedication of director Celeste Vergara, whose sensitive handling of the material ensures that the film's emotional weight never feels forced. Vergara's emphasis on character development, her commitment to creating a space for actors to explore their roles deeply, and her ability to craft a narrative that allows each element of the film to shine contribute to the overall cohesiveness of the film. Her direction is subtle yet powerful, guiding the performances and the story in ways that feel both organic and transformative. The impact of In His Mother's Eyes has been profound, both critically and among audiences. Critics have praised its emotional depth, its performances, and its ability to handle difficult themes with sensitivity and grace. The film has sparked important conversations about family dynamics, maternal relationships, and the emotional toll of abandonment and reconciliation. On social media, viewers have shared their own experiences of estrangement and healing, finding personal meaning in the character's journey. The film's universal themes and emotional resonance have made it a cultural touchstone, one that will continue to be discussed and appreciated for years to come. The movie's legacy goes beyond its initial success. It has cultivated a lasting connection with audiences. Viewers continue to be drawn to its emotional authenticity, returning to the film for its cathartic release and its exploration of themes that are both deeply personal and universally relatable. In His Mother's Eyes is not just a film. It is a conversation starter, a film that continues to echo in the minds and hearts of those who experience it. It speaks to the complexity of human emotions, the difficulty of forgiveness, and the power of family bonds, no matter how fractured they may seem. As with all truly great films, In His Mother's Eyes is more than the sum of its parts. It is a work of art that engages viewers on an emotional level, leaving them with a sense of catharsis, reflection, and even hope. It is a film that rewards multiple viewings, with each rewatch offering new insights into its rich layers and complex characters. Whether it's the unforgettable performances, the striking visuals, or the powerful themes, there is always something new to discover in the film. This is a film that stays with you long after the credits have rolled. A film that invites viewers to reflect on their own lives, relationships, and personal journeys of forgiveness and healing. In His Mother's Eyes also stands as an example of the incredible potential of Filipino cinema, demonstrating that emotional storytelling transcends borders and cultural boundaries. The film's success on the international stage speaks to the universal power of its themes and the talent of its cast and crew. It serves as a reminder that cinema is not just an entertainment medium, but a powerful vehicle for cultural exchange and emotional connection. As we've explored in this deep dive, In His Mother's Eyes is a film that thrives on its nuanced performances, its breathtaking visuals, and its exploration of the human condition. It is a film that isn't just about its characters, but about all of us, about our relationships with those we love, our struggles with forgiveness, and our efforts to bridge the distance that time and hurt can create. Its emotional resonance and cinematic brilliance ensure that it will be remembered as a modern classic, one that will continue to touch hearts for years to come. If you love this breakdown, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of cinema. Let's keep exploring movies together. Every story is worth uncovering, and the world of film is filled with endless treasures waiting to be discovered. Until next time, happy watching.